he's been going out to the field and talking to them about what can we do better, how can we explain this in more layman's terms, how can we make this program that's so complicated a little bit less complicated. We're also going to be doing some training on evaluation of medical evidence. Our medical doctor is going to go to our claims examiners and talk to them a little bit about that, and training on home health care, evaluations of that. So that's a constant, ongoing process. As we find things that they need to know more about, we go out and train them on it. This year we've also had a lot of technological different changes for our claims examiners. And that is that for the first 10 years of the program, we've been, when this program first started, we had 6 months to get it up and running, pretty much, after it was passed. And so that meant getting staffed up, doing outreach, doing training, writing procedures, and creating a database to enter all the information into. Well, that database, since we had to do it so quickly, was cloned from Black Lung's database. And we tried to fit it into our process because we needed to do it fast, so we needed to be tracking something. We kind of tweaked it over the years to make it, more dedicated to ours, and then we got Part E, which was completely different. So they cloned the Part B database and made it a Part E database, and now then we had two databases. So they're putting B information into one and E into another, and so we said, we really need to have one integrated, united system that can track the case from beginning to end, be a little bit more progressive in terms of being web-based. So we started this process a couple of years ago. We involved all of our employees in trying to help us develop the requirements for the system so that it would be more of an EEOICPA system. And we did come up with something, and we deployed that in January this last year. So our claims examiners have been learning this system. It's a very different way of doing it. They used to enter codes. Now they enter a status that, okay, I've issued a development letter, now I'm in a recommended decision, but it kind of forces you to say, if I got to a recommended decision, I should have already done X, Y, and Z. So it kind of helps us guide them. But it's difficult. It's change for our claims examiners, and we've had to do a lot of training this year, and we're still working with them, and our reports have been affected a little bit. Some of our statistics have been affected a little bit by that. We also have entered on, Greg and I talked about the electronic system for sharing data with DOE. That we started just a few months ago, which I think is a great thing, so that we don't have to waste time with mail and paper, and we can just upload documents. But that, again, is another training for our claims examiners to learn. This year we've also had, as you know, the new contract for medical doctors, and we did that mostly because we wanted consistency, and this broker can find different doctors, and we were hoping to get more and more doctors who have specialties that, because the kinds of things we need specialties in, oncology, pulmonology, it's not as easy to find. So that's part of the purpose for doing that, but it's also a different process for them. In the coming years, we're going to continue with some more IT developments. We want to go paperless. NIOSH is paperless. The reason we didn't go paperless when this program started was because, again, we had to go up really fast, and we had Part B only. We thought, well, it's lump sums. It's not going to be, we'll pay the lump sum, and that'll be it. And so, they said, we can do the paper, and then the paper's going to go away, other than medical benefits. Well, that didn't happen, obviously, and then we got Part E, and that's impairment and wage loss, and it goes on forever. And we've got a lot of paper. Our file rooms are full of paper, full of huge files this big. And so we are going to try to begin that project this year, hopefully implement it in 2014, so that it'll make FOIAs easier. It will make a lot of things easier. We will make it so our claims examiners can maybe work at home a little bit. We can look at case files without transferring them to national office, because I can't look at a case file if it's in Seattle until I see the case file. So that we're really hoping will help us. We're also going to a different phone system that they have in our sister program, FECA, called IVR. It's Integrated Voice Response System. We're hoping it's basically, it is going to be a little bit more computer-based, but we're hoping it'll help us be more responsive in phone calls. And it'll also send an email to a claims examiner if they have a phone call, and give more alerts and things like that. And we can run reports, see how quickly we're answering our calls. So those are our upcoming projects in terms of technology. We are also trying to refocus on outreach. I think this event, I'm very grateful to be able to be at it. I know Denise has been doing this for a few years, and we've been trying to, I want to hear what you guys have to say because you're the ones in the front line. And so I think this is important. We're also going to continue our town hall meetings when there's an SEC or there's a reason that we've found that is particularly important. And we're going to be doing, we've developed this joint outreach task group force group with DOE and NIOSH. And the reason we developed that is we've always kind of shared some of the meetings with them, but this kind of formalizes it. We'll have a charter that everyone's going to sign, basically laying out how we can work together to get the word out, to share information, mailing lists or whatever it might be, to let people know about the program. In addition, we've developed some joint goals. Many times we've received complaints that, we can measure our own time, so from the time it takes us to develop a case till the time it goes to NIOSH, and when it gets back, we didn't count that NIOSH time because it wasn't our time. It's still time that the claimant has to wait. And so we've been working with NIOSH and DOE, and we've developed a set of goals that we're going to be looking at this year in terms of from the time a person files a claim till the time they get a first final decision. How long does that take? And that includes whether it went to NIOSH. Hearings often will add to our time, so we're counting hearings, not hearings, NIOSH, no NIOSH. And we're hoping, I think that NIOSH has actually they've improved a lot in their timeliness in the last 3 years. And this cert process will help us with the DOE sharing of data. We've never really had a serious problem in terms of timeliness and gathering data from them, but I think that will help us, and it's a focus that we think is important at this point. And then we have various projects. The claims examiners have regular work to do all the time, but there are also other projects that need to be looked at. We need to go back and look at some of these cases. We have a review process for looking at cases when toxins are added to SEM, but we need to formalize that. So we're going to have, beginning this year, we're going to have groups of claims examiners looking at groups of cases. So if we know that there's been a whole lot of toxins added at a certain site, or there's been, a new link added in hazmat, we're going to have them groups at a time without bombarding them. I can't ask them to go and look at every Part E case that's been denied again right now, but we're going to try to target that this year so that we're going back and catching things. If something's changed, we can go look at it. The National Institute of Medicine review. John talked quite a bit about SEM, and yes, there's a lot of questions about SEM and its usefulness. Again, without it, I think we'd be a lot worse off because we wouldn't be able to even establish a lot. But that can be improved, absolutely, and it's going to be improved, and we're constantly doing research. Our contractors are still going to sites and looking at records and trying to add information. But the questions, I have a lot of questions here. I'm probably not, really a lot of the questions related to SEM are related to whether or not we're using the right hazmat is right for it, whether or not, we don't have every toxic substance. I can tell you that right now. We do not have every toxic substance that's ever been out there because there's always going to be more information found. We don't have the resources to, if we had hundreds of employees to go and sit at a DOE site for years at a time, we might be able to touch the surface of it, but we are working on it. And do we have every link that's ever been made? No, obviously, and again, there's constant research being done. What we did want the National Institute of Medicine to do for us is to look at it and say, give us a sanity check. Is this the right way to do this? Are we doing something wrong? Is there more we should be doing? Is there something else we should be looking at to be adding into this database? And that's an 18-month study, so they started back in January, and so I expect the report in June. They're going to be providing us with recommendations. As some of you know, they've had open meetings, a couple of them. I think they're only going to have a couple of them, but they're doing internal research. They've got a team of scientists looking at this. And, I think it's valuable. It'll help us to learn more about what could be added, what could be done differently with it. I think it'll improve the system. So we're looking forward to that. A lot of these questions that you have about that, and synergy is a question they're going to be addressing, or at least looking at. will be addressed in that report, and if it's not, we'll take further steps, but we'll look at their recommendations, and hopefully that will really improve the system. The SECs are ongoing projects, and as John pointed out, we fit that into the regular workload that our claims examiners have. So they're kept pretty busy, but they're always asking questions, just like you. John goes out to the field, I go out to our district offices and our FAB, and we are bombarded by questions too, just because they've got very specific cases too, and they're saying, well, I'm not sure this doesn't really fit into this procedure you have out there. Well, that's true, because we can't write a procedure for every instance that could possibly happen, so they do have questions. We try to answer those questions as we go along, and we have regular meetings with them to talk about those. Some of these issues are issues that should be placed in our procedure manual because they are actually broad-based, and they can be taken out of context and put into a policy. Some instances, it's really very specific to a case, and if we were to put it in the policy, another case would come and contradict it. So we have to be very careful with those sorts of things, but they're constantly wanting to know more. They are trying their hardest to do these things right. I have not met one single claims examiner that's come up to me and said, I really want to deny this case.